So let's talk about pivot. I call it the other five-letter word. A lot of times, whenever I'm brought in, either within our organization or whenever I'm consulting clients, it's never the fun part of the pivot. And so over time, I've actually learned there's a formula to making sure that it is done correctly. And that's what I want to go through with you today and have a little bit of fun. But thank you for the introduction. As vice president, my job really is defined as I am in control of the largest expense and the largest revenue producing asset in the company, and that's people. So I get to do all of the fun stuff of HR. I don't have to do payroll or benefits. And if you do that and it's fun for you, fantastic. It's not fun for me. But I look at how we are able to go and attract the best talent, how we develop them, turn them into high performance, and then ultimately one day how they retire. So that's kind of my goal. I also am incredibly passionate about recruiting. I get asked a lot, did you major in HR? And the absolute answer is no. Hell no. I never thought that I would be in HR. I spent most of my career prior to HR hating HR. That's what I thought HR stood for, was hating really. So I got into it thinking that maybe I could change it, and it's 20 years later and I'm still trying. In my free time, I do a lot of writing, a lot of speaking. I've written two books, High Performance Recruiting and Sprint Recruiting. And this is a warning. Dan was very nice in saying that I have no filter. Let me be a little bit more blunt. I'm in HR, but I cuss a little, especially whenever I'm passionate about a topic. So let's first make sure that we define, and we're speaking the same terms. What is a pivot? It is whenever a business has to make a strategic change because of market demands, talent demands, a pandemic. Who would have thought in our lifetime that we would be dealing with a pandemic? Or any kind of emerging technologies. Think about AI and just the incredible impact that it's had on our industry and multiple industries. And what the pivot enables companies to do is to be able to survive. If you don't pivot, you don't survive. I was thinking the other day of some of the stores whenever I was young, like Shannon said, back in the dinosaur days. We didn't have one place to go and get groceries and clothes and electronics. That was four different shopping trips. And then I think about companies like Radio Shack and some of the ones that we used to have to go to. They're not around anymore. They were consumed by the Targets, by the Walmarts, and those two companies continue to pivot. And so that's why I really want to kind of dig in today to make sure that if you're considering a pivot, whether you're leading it in the organization or you're just doing something personal, you're pivoting in your life, let's make sure that we're going and we're following the right formula. So that's how you define it. Let's talk about how it feels. Whenever I start working with a client, I tell them, look, this pivot's going to feel like you walked into the wrong party. And just imagine that awkwardness of going, oh crap, this is the wrong party. And then deciding that you're going to go crash the party next door because they're playing more kind of your music, stuff that you recognize. And you have to do it in a way that looks like this is exactly what you wanted to do. So you're managing disaster on the very cusp. And I like to call that out because people like me, I love pivots as long as I'm leading them. Whenever they're inflicted on me, I don't like it so much. There's a guttural response. So I do think that if you look at some of the facts about pivots, the very first one is the most important. They suck, all right? Especially if you're not leading it. It's impressed upon you. Maybe you didn't have a seat at the table whenever the company was talking about this pivot, or the market is forcing you to pivot. The talent that you're recruiting for is forcing you to pivot. Personally, I'm having to do a pivot and get into how do we recruit AI technologists, because we have gone from being a software company only to being the preferred AI partner for our clients and prospects who want to build digital solutions. It also, it's kind of like opening up a present that says like opportunity, disaster, or bomb or birthday cake, and you don't really know which one you're going to get until you start unwrapping the gift. Sadistic people like me, I love it because through the pivot, it's going to bring out some things that you didn't realize need to be fixed, but you got to do it in the moment. And it's not anything that you can plan. To me, it's kind of the fun part, the anticipation of knowing that there's something that I'm going to have to do. But for a lot of people, it's like looking at that gift going, okay, do I really want to open this in front of people? The biggest complexity is that you're having to manage multiple things at one time in any pivot. And that this is even, personally, maybe you want to change your health and you want to change your diet, change your workout schedule, change your mindsets, try to do a little bit of meditating, where you're going to have to pivot your time. You're going to have to pivot your focus. You're going to have to pivot how you look at food. So this can be applied in multiple different directions. So as I stated, whenever I'm brought in to a pivot, it is usually a dumpster fire. I don't know who I ticked off in my previous life that I'm having to kind of be thrown in this situation, but I've learned to adapt to it. And a lot of times, whenever I'm asking clients or within our organization, okay, where are we? What's going on? How are we going to get towards success? This is probably the best picture that I can represent what's going on in their brain. It's like their brain is shutting down. There's a very simple formula. And for those of you that know me, of course, I used something that was math based on data. But the simple formula is actually using the letters that are in the word pivot to help you remember each step to go through. So we're going to talk about people, innovation, vision, optimization, and transformation. Now, I know you probably think, oh, he's going to give me all the answers, and that is not the job that I'm here to do. I'm a coach. My job as a coach is to get you to ask the right questions so that way you can lead and survive and thrive in the pivot that you're facing. So let's talk first about people. I'm glad that P starts pivot so we can start talking about people because a lot of times when you're leading a pivot or you're in the midst of the pivot, the ones who suffer are people because they're the afterthought. It's let's go build this shiny new object. Let's not think about how it's going to affect our current workforce. So some questions that I like to ask when facilitating a pivot is who does this affect the most? That's my target audience. For me, that's my target that I'm making sure if I'm doing any kind of a temperature check, if I'm seeing if it's going through right, that's the group that I want to make sure that I am keeping my gloves around. All right. Also ask who are my challengers and who are my champions. Early in my career, always saw challengers as PETAs, pain in the ass. Like, why can't you just accept this and get on board? Over time, I've actually learned that I like my challengers because they're going to make me think of something that I'm not thinking of. They're going to help me see a blind spot. Um, and my goal for the challengers is I want to nurture and educate them. And depending on where you are on the kind of the change mindset, that can be very exhausting. But if you can get them on board by nurturing them, by educating them on some of the other aspects we're going to cover in the acronym, you're going to find that they are going to be your champions. Because the champions that just come right out of the gate going, yeah, let's do this, they're great. Their energy's infectious, but they're not necessarily thinking about all the implications. But for the champions, you want to elevate and replicate. All right. So you've got your challengers and then you've got your champions. The goal is to get the two of them to mix and get all rowing in the same direction. The other thing with people is you need to establish a communication channel, strategy, and content. How are you going to communicate where you are in this pivot? How are you going to communicate who's going to be impacted? This is the way to make sure that your people involved are in it with you. If you don't communicate and just say, this is what we're doing, you're going to lose people and it's going to be more work than what is necessary. Also, to make some check-ins. So for my challengers, I like to have check-ins with them, do a couple of focus groups or, a newsletter that's specifically to them or open up a specific Slack channel just for them. Make yourself available. You're going to find that as you nurture and educate them, they're going to come along. And then same thing for your champions. Get them excited. Keep that excitement going. It's kind of managing two sides of the same ship and making sure that you don't rock the boat. Innovation. So working with a client 2 or 3 years ago, and they said, we're innovating. I said, okay, great. What are you creating? Huh? Okay. What are you creating? If you're innovating, you're creating something. And they didn't have an answer for that. If you do not have a definition of what you are innovating, the only thing you are creating is chaos. And you don't want to do that. That's painful. And especially in recruiting, we've got enough chaos going with the economy, with the talent market, with the kind of the shifting demands and the impact of AI on our industry. We don't need to create any more chaos in our life. We have plenty, right? So you want to also ask what departments are going to be at the front and center, or what are the aspects of this pivot that are going to be front and center? They're going to help me define success. The other is, do you have the right infrastructure to support that innovation? So let's talk about something personally. I gave the example of changing your health. I did that in 2014. I wanted to lose 60 pounds and get in better shape. Well, I was okay there for the first couple of weeks, but I didn't build that infrastructure that I needed. I needed to change my routines. I needed to change how I shopped. I needed to change how I worked out. It was completely different. A lot of people that go through that journey, they just make one change and they think, oh, this will work. This will be great. No, you've got to have that infrastructure. Same thing goes if you want to build a new piece of AI technology. Do your developers know AI? No? Well, there's an infrastructure problem there. So make sure that you're focused on that infrastructure. Can it support the pivot? More specifically, can it keep up with the innovation that you need? And then also, too, this is kind of a borderline between innovation and people, but who has the mindsets that we need to ignite this innovation, and do they have the support? A lot of times organizations will have one or two people that are great innovators, but they get so tired of fighting that internal mantra of resistance to change. So you want to make sure that you're providing support to those individuals. And if you're the one that has that mindset, make sure that you have a support system, because it is a very lonely road. Vision. Where in the hell are you going with this pivot? All right. You want clarity. What is the problem that you're trying to solve? Is there a problem that you're trying to solve? How do you define success? And this needs to be very easily articulated. I did a little stint just kind of doing some consulting with a company, and I said, okay, what's the definition of success? And it was like a 3-page document. I'm going, no, 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 no. No, that's not a roadmap. We need something very easily communicated to our clients, to our employees, that should just be top of mind. And the reason for that is that if you have it very nice and simple and able to be articulated, all of the decisions that your employees make will go through that funnel. And that's exactly what you need. That's why you need the clarity, because if you don't provide that, you're going to be pivoting all over the place. And that's not what you want. You want a very direct line to success, but you have to define it first. It needs to also be centered. Why are we doing the pivot? For a software development company, if we do not pivot and become the trusted AI partner, we will be non-existent in the next 3 to 4 years. That sounds negative, but that is a fact. And how I'm able to craft that and help our employees understand, I need you to elevate, I need you to re-educate and evolve into the AI technologies that we need. That's the why. Because if not, then I'm just assigning training to them and they're like, what? I have my job to do. I don't need to be doing all of this. But if they understand the why, they're going to make that time. The other thing is hit on it inadvertently, but it's just kind of how I think is, if we don't do this, what are the consequences? We'll be non-existent. We'll lose talent. I may not have a job. You need to identify those and be very forthright in them, because that's going to add credence and power to why you want to achieve whatever that definition of success is, as outlined in your vision. And again, communicate it. How are you doing? What is that going to look like? Even, back in the day, whenever there was a new vision or mission or whatever for the company, we would always get those little things that were in our cubes. Well, now we're virtual. I used to make fun of those things, but I kind of miss it, because it was a reminder of where the company was going, and I could relate everything that I was doing during the day to that strategic goal. So find some way to be able to do that for yourself, for your team, or for your organization. Optimization. What are we going to do better? What are we going to do more efficient? How are we going to enable and optimize our team's skills and capabilities to meet the demand of this pivot? And most importantly, what are the metrics that are going to help us measure the success? I cannot tell you how many times the vision's great, the people thing is okay, and they want to optimize, but they have no metrics to be able to say, we're doing better than we were this time last year over year growth. Make sure that you're looking at the right metrics. They need to be actionable. They need to be leading measures, not lagging measures. Leading means that I can look at the metric that's going on today for the last 24 hours. I can change course based off of that data in the next 24 hours and impact how soon we're able to enact the pivot or achieve that success. And it's really important to look at the right tools. All right. So I'm on HireEZ. I can do a plug. Usually, whenever I'm doing something else, I go, I'm not plugging HireEZ, but I'm plugging HireEZ. For me, this is the optimization tool of a recruiter's dreams. All right. I can go find the talent. I can go and create a market insight, advise my client, hey, you don't need someone with 8 years of AI experience. They're not around. Let's look at four. It opens up the pool. Let's look at Dallas and Atlanta because we can see from this insight report, this is where most of the talent is. And then I can go and optimize my entire process by going and engaging some of those candidates. I can go and look at how quickly can I set up a sequence? What sequences are better? Do some A/B testing. What marketing emails that I send out, where do they click? All of that stuff. That's optimizing your process so you're working smarter and not harder. This is probably the bane of my existence whenever I'm working with recruiters trying to elevate themselves. If you're going to optimize, you're going to have to do new tools. You're going to have to do new processes. You got to let some of the other stuff go. So Shannon, you were talking about when you were a dinosaur. It kind of gave me a flashback to whenever I first started in recruiting. You would walk into my cube and you saw like around kind of I guess the L organized by state phone books because that's what I had. That was before Google got to be a big thing. I mean, I was, smiling and dialing, but I had it optimized for the tool and the technology that we had at the time. And it is light years different now. Now, if you optimize the process with a tool like HireEZ or even Zapier or some of the automation tools that are out there, you can focus on what all of us really feel called to do, which is consult talent on the best career move that they can make. All right. Well, I'm just showing all my cards. All right. Optimization, transformation. What are the specific changes that need to transform the business? And let's define transformation. Transformation is going from one state to another. It is going from a caterpillar to a butterfly. Butterfly cannot go back to a caterpillar, right? A frog cannot go back to a tadpole. An adolescent cannot go back to a baby, even though sometimes you wish that they would. It's a transformation. It means you are moving forward. There is no going back. So if whatever you're doing in the pivot does not fall in that definition, you're not transforming. You're changing. You're not transforming. Transforming is becoming something completely new. How can you effectively transform the culture to embrace and drive this change, this transformation? This gets back to the why. If I talk about we need to be AI technologists because we want to make sure that we're able to survive and evolve and grow and expand our business, that's the transformation. You're a software developer today. In the next X number of days, X number of months, as we go through this pivot, you will be an AI technologist. And this is what it looks like. Someone who does this, who has this, who works on projects like this and consults clients like that. That's where that vision, the transformation, that's where you can see that you can draw that parallel between the two of them. And it's critical. It is absolutely important and imperative for you to actually achieve whatever that definition of success is that you set at the beginning of the pivot. Again, what are the tools and technologies that you need to leverage that transformation? So internally, kind of managed two pivots this year, and I'm so ready for 2024 to be over. I love change, but it has been entirely too much this year. But let me just talk about two that have been pretty critical. So the first one I've already hinted to of we're a software delivery company. We have employees in LATAM and the US. And we provide software development, consulting, and delivery for our clients and prospects. We realized at the beginning of the year, AI is really about to change our industry. And so we want to get it ahead of it. So we are looking at now, how do we rethink reskill, and redeploy our current assets. And so that's kind of the pivot that we're doing. Our marketing has pivoted. How we recruit has pivoted. Everything has been focused on the people, the innovation, the vision, the optimization, the transformation. This is something I'm living daily, and it's constantly changing because as soon as we get on one course, there's a new technology, there's a new app or something that's out there. So that's one pivot that I'm leading, that I'm following this formula. The other was probably Q1. So we'll talk about the Blue Monster real quick that all of you are on. And if you don't know who the Blue Monster is, chances are you put a link to your Blue Monster in the chat. All right. I am confounded, confused as to how a company that long or that large for that long, who has made as much money on all of us on the phone, has not evolved to where I need them to be from a tool. And we were spending a lot of money. We're a bootstrap company, small company, a ton of money on the Blue Monster, and it just wasn't yielding the right results. The recruiting team, that's all they knew. That's what they were used to. I introduced Hire Easy. They used it a little bit. The more I looked at it and the more I looked at the return on investment, it was not there for the Blue Monster. I wanted to try Hire Easy. And so we made the pivot. I had to make sure that my team understood. I am closing the door. I am burning the ship to the Blue Monster, and we're going all in on the Hire Easy. I had to help them through that transformation. I set the vision and said, look, this is a tool that constantly evolves. This is a tool that's going to be able to keep up with what we need. This is a tool that's going to make your life easier. So I had that vision. And then walking through and transforming, we have been completely transformed. But the transformation came because of the data that I was able to use in the tool that I selected. They're able to see I'm getting more hits, I'm getting more reply rates, I'm getting more engagement. So, these are just two pivots that I've had to try to manage and keep my hairline at the same time in 2024. So, all that to say, I do eat my own dog food whenever it comes to this formula. I do want to caution, though, because there is a huge misconception, misunderstanding about three of the terms. Innovation does not equal optimization, does not equal transformation. And sometimes in a pivot, you may not have innovation, but you have optimization and transformation. Sometimes you don't have optimization because you're creating something completely different that's going to help you transform. So let's clarify what these three different stages in the pivot are. Innovation. What are we creating? I was meeting with the prospect and they were kind of going through and they go, we're innovating this, we're innovating that. I said, okay, wait. What are you creating? And they couldn't answer the question. I said, well, you're not creating anything. You're actually optimizing your process. You're not creating a new process. You're not creating a new product. You're optimizing, because in optimization, you're answering the question, how can we become more efficient? How can we do this faster, better? How can we increase the engagement by doing X, Y, and Z? That's optimization. Those are the questions that you're asking and you're trying to solve when you're leading the optimization part of the pivot. And then the transformation is, how will we change or be different? It should be a metamorphosis. You are not ever going to go back to who you were. I will never go back to the recruiter that gets phone books for two reasons. One, I'm lazy and technology has enabled me to be a heck of a lot more efficient and focus on the human. Number two, I don't know that they make phone books anymore. So it's completely irrelevant. I've transformed myself over the last 20 years to be hopefully at the cutting edge of recruiting technology. So make sure that you understand the definition and the difference between innovation, optimization, and transformation by asking yourself these questions. So, quick reminder, very simple formula. It will make sense of the chaos because you're focusing your line of sight on exactly how to achieve success by focusing on your people. Are you innovating? And if you are, do you have the right tools, the right infrastructure? Do you have the right support? Vision? Is there clarity? Have you actually clearly articulated the definition of success and the problem that you're trying to solve? If not, you need to start there. What are you optimizing? How are you going to move faster, smarter, better, more engaging? However you want to define it. What are you optimizing? And then how will you be different at the end of that pivot? And all of these are interrelated. Okay. So hopefully I've done my job. I try to squeeze a lot in. I could talk about this for probably another 2 hours. It's something I'm very passionate about. I could probably tell you a whole bunch of stories of what not to do during a pivot. But if you would like, you could pivot over to Amazon and read one of the two books. Both of them deal with how I have tried to navigate some of the changes thrown at me in the recruiting industry. And with that, I think I'm going to open it up for questions. Warning, questions can only be short and easy. They have to make me look smart. All questions that do not meet these qualifications will not be answered. And in the interim, if you'd like to follow me, I've got a couple of different channels. You can use the QR code, and you can also go to my website. So with that, Dan, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Yeah, we got one question from the group, and like I mentioned, if you want to throw in a question, we have a couple minutes for Q&A session. So feel free to use the Q&A section, put in your question, and he'll answer it. The first question is, what benefit did you find once your team shifted to Hire Easy from the Blue Monster? And how did you recommend a company goes about making that transition?
The analytics is probably the biggest thing. And so whenever I met with the Blue Monster representative, and after I dropped a couple of superlatives when she told me the price to re-up, I asked her, I said, so what am I getting for that? For us, it was a $25,000 a year increase. What's the value that I'm paying for? If there's a value, I'll pay for it all day long, twice on Sunday. Well, you have an AI assisted message. Okay, that doesn't, I can do that in ChatGPT for 20 bucks a month. There was not a lot of value there. What I was able to get from Hire Easy is we've got 6 different sequences. And I met with Sam, our awesome account rep, yesterday. And he went in and said, hey, this one's performing great. People are usually responding by the fourth or the fifth. Here's the open rate. Here's the click rate. Go and check on sequence 4 because people are really responding and clicking on that. Whatever it is, multiply it. That's the kind of stuff that I want to be able to do because part of our job is being those brand ambassadors. And if I don't have the analytics to be able to do that, I'm flying blind. And I think that was the biggest thing for the team was that they were able to see a higher response rate. They were able to hit things on autopilot, go in. And the biggest thing for us, and I know that the Blue Monster has their insights, I don't trust it because I have found faults in the data more times than I care to think about. Whenever I sit down with a new client or a new hiring manager, we go through that market insights and I show them exactly what the pool looks like. That's a game changer because my team, we want to be consultants. We don't want to be, I put a cheek in the seat. That first step, that intake, that's where you set the tone of going, I am the talent master. You need to listen to me. And I need to have a tool that enables me to be able to do that with data. And for me, Hire Easy was just kind of the no-brainer there.
How did you sell that within your own team? Because I feel like, the, what are we calling it? The Blue Monster
Mhm.
is a security blanket for the recruiters. How did you
Mhm.
sell it to your team? And then how did you sell it to your directs, and people that you report to of making that switch?
Um, it's a great question. So I always like to be different. Um, if I know, well, let me back up. Let me tell you a little story. We were at a friend dinner. There was like probably 10 of us there, and I was talking to a couple of people, um, and I asked them, it's like, hey, we haven't even connected on the Blue Monster, and they said, I don't even get into that. So, well, why not? And one of them opened their InMail, and they had 99 InMails from recruiters that all said basically the same thing, just from different companies. So for me, it was kind of a light bulb of going, okay, if 85% of the recruiting population is going after the same talent I'm going after through the Blue Monster, I want to go somewhere different because I'm going to get their attention. There's a captive audience out there, and so that's one of the things that we have found is that we get more responses that way. Now, if we don't get an email response, we may go and tag them on the Blue Monster, but that's a secondary. It's not what we lead with.
Got it. Awesome. Any last minute words of advice that you want to share with the audience?
Oh gosh. Breathe. I think my heart kind of goes out to. I'm starting to see a couple more recruiting positions pop open. It's giving me a little bit of hope. I know that most of the agencies and recruiters, all of us have been sucker punched 3 and 4 times since 2020. I just want to encourage everyone, continue to stay involved. I'm in the community, Hire Easy's community. I have probably 5 or 6 amazing recruiting professionals that I reach out to and I bounce things off of. And, if I'm having a shitty day, I'll go, hey, this is what I'm running into. Have you ever run into that? Don't isolate yourself. I find that recruiters sometimes they get so focused and so in this zone that whenever they've had enough, they have no one to turn to because they haven't established those relationships. There are great people out there and not the influencers that are on the Blue Monster that just post random shit out there. Go and find the people that actually have some depth, that know what they're talking about, that will take the time to go, hey, let me help you with that problem. I've been through the same thing. We're out there. Just come find us.